All right, so let's imagine you just spent your whole weekend glued to Serie A matches.
Every single one.
Yeah, exactly. Genoa, Lecce, AC, Milan, Juventus, you name it. And now you're trying to process it all.
Right. Yeah, all those goals, those incredible saves, those moments where you're just like, what just happened?
Yeah, you're buzzing, but maybe a little overwhelmed too.
Mhm.
All those scores, the highlights, the controversial calls, where do you even begin to unpack all of that?
Right.
And that's exactly where we come in with this deep dive. We're going to cut through all that noise and focus on what really matters. The biggest takeaways, the stories you absolutely need to know. And trust me, this weekend was packed.
Yeah. We had some really incredible comebacks. Some matches went right down to the wire. And don't even get me started on some of those goals.
Oh, I know, right? Some absolute beauties. Okay, so why don't we start things off with Genoa's win over the Wick.
Okay, sounds good.
2-1 final score. But man, it was a nail-biter.
Yeah, it was. It was really tense. But you know what really stood out for me? Fabio Miretti, he was just phenomenal for Genoa. 2 goals, and both of them were just so different, so impressive.
Yeah, I was going to say, what was it about those goals that impressed you?
Well, okay, so his first goal was all about being in the right place at the right time, you know? He found that little pocket of space in the box to receive the pass, and then boom, clinical finish.
Yeah.
Textbook stuff, really. But then that second goal, that was pure instinct. A loose ball in the box, everyone's scrambling, and he's the one who reacts the quickest, pounces on it, and puts it away. He was a difference in that match, no question.
He really was the star of the show. And Lecce did manage to pull one back with that penalty from Krstovic. But in the end, Genoa's defense held strong.
Yeah, their defense was rock solid.
They were determined to protect that lead, and they did it.
They were so organized, so disciplined. They made crucial interventions every time Lecce threatened. And, you know, that's something to watch from Genoa moving forward, that defensive strength.
And speaking of comebacks, that AC Milan match, oh my goodness. I was on the edge of my seat that entire second half.
Me too.
They were trailing against Como. And let's be honest, for a while there, it didn't look good.
It really didn't. But then Christian Pulisic, he just stepped up, delivered this moment of magic. That equalizer was world class.
I rewound that goal like 3 times. The way he weaved through that defense, it was like he was gliding through, and then that finish. So precise.
Yeah.
What was going through your mind watching that play?
I mean, it was obviously an incredible display of individual skill, but it was more than that. He saw a gap in the defense, a tiny little opening, and he just exploited it perfectly. And then, of course, you've got Tijani Reijnders scoring the winner, which just goes to show you how resilient AC Milan are. They can adapt to any situation.
Yeah, it was like they just flipped the switch all of a sudden.
Right.
And, you know, it makes you wonder, could this be a turning point for them this season? I mean, this comeback win, it could be huge for their confidence.
It could be. It definitely shows they have the mental toughness to overcome challenges, and that's so important if they want to be contenders.
Okay, so we've had those thrilling comebacks. But now let's talk about Juventus. Their 1-0 victory over Fiorentina. It might not sound like the most exciting match on paper, but honestly, I thought it was fascinating.
Me too.
It was like a tactical masterclass.
Yeah, it was like watching a chess match. Both sides just thinking 2-3 steps ahead.
Exactly. And that Conceição goal set up by Bonny, that was a perfect example of that. Can you break that down for me? What made that play so special?
Well, okay, so Fiorentina's defense was really well organized, but Juventus didn't panic. They were so patient, moving the ball around, probing for any weakness. And then when that tiny little gap appeared, boom. Muani's pass to Conceição was perfectly timed, and Conceição finished it beautifully. It wasn't just about the pass, though. It was about the timing. They waited for the exact right moment to strike. It was like surgical.
It really was. It wasn't just a goal. It was a statement. They were so disciplined. Do you think this is something we can expect to see more of from Juventus, this more controlled approach?
I think it's possible. I mean, they've always had amazing players, incredible individual talent, but this match showed a different side to them, a more strategic side. If they can keep playing with this kind of tactical awareness, they're going to be a serious threat.
Yeah, we've talked about those comebacks and those tactical battles, but what about those matches where the defenses were just like walls? Those goalless draws, they don't always get the attention they deserve.
Right, they can be just as exciting in their own way.
Absolutely. Like Venezia holding Napoli to a 0-0 draw.
Yeah.
I was glued to my screen for that one. Napoli just kept pressing and pressing, but Venezia just wouldn't break.
Their defense was unbelievable. They read Napoli like a book. They were always one step ahead, anticipating every move, shutting down every attack. It was a masterclass in defensive resilience.
It really was. And what about Bologna versus Lazio? Another goalless draw, but that midfield battle was intense.
Oh, yeah, that was a good one. It was back and forth the whole time, both teams just fighting for every inch of space. It was really interesting to see how they were adapting to each other's tactics, constantly adjusting and counter-adjusting.
And those matches just go to show you that in Serie a strong defense is just as important as a strong attack. Sometimes it's the team that can shut down their opponents that comes out on top.
100%. And it makes the league even more exciting.
Because you never know which approach is going to be the most effective on any given day.
Exactly. And, there were actually a few results this weekend that really surprised me.
Really? Which ones?
Well, I have to say, Inter Milan beating Atalanta 2-0, that one really caught my eye.
I know what you mean. Atalanta, they're such a strong attacking team. To see Inter Milan not just beat them, but completely shut them down, it was impressive.
It was a statement performance for sure.
Yeah, like, are you watching this, everybody? Okay, so tell me more about what made this match so impressive from Inter's side.
Well, their midfield was just dominant. Barella and Çalhanoğlu, they were everywhere, breaking up Atalanta's attacks and then launching their own. They controlled that midfield battle from start to finish.
And that midfield control that gave their attackers space to work their magic right.
Exactly. Lautaro Martinez and Edin Dzeko both found the back of the net, and honestly, they could have scored more. Atalanta just had no answers for Inter's intensity and precision.
Yeah, it makes you wonder how other teams are going to try and play against Inter now. That kind of performance, it has to send a message.
Oh, absolutely. Teams are going to have to figure out a way to disrupt Inter's midfield if they want to have any chance of beating them. It's going to be really interesting to see how they try to adapt.
Okay, before we move on, I want to circle back to those goalless draws for a second. We were talking about how important a solid defense can be, and those matches, they were perfect examples. What were some of the other defensive performances that really stood out to you?
Well, besides Venezia's incredible effort against Napoli, I thought Monza's backline deserved some credit. Holding Parma to a 0-0 draw that was impressive. They were disciplined, they were organized, and their goalkeeper, Michele Di Gregorio, he made some huge saves.
Right. Sometimes it's easy to overlook those gritty defensive performances, especially when there are so many goals being scored in other matches. But they're just as important to a team's success.
Absolutely, and those kinds of matches, they often come down to those individual moments of brilliance, a last-ditch tackle or an amazing save.
Speaking of individual moments, were there any other players besides Miretti and Pulisic who really caught your eye this weekend?
I was really impressed with Paulo Dybala for Roma. He scored the only goal in their 1-0 win against Cagliari, and it was a thing of beauty.
Ah, yes, Dybala. He's one of those players who can just create something out of nothing. What was it about that goal that stood out to you?
His awareness and his ability to create space for himself. He got the ball with his back to goal, and then just like that, he turned two defenders inside out and curled this beautiful shot into the top corner. It was a world-class goal.
It's funny, we've been talking about tactics and defensive masterclasses, but sometimes it really does just come down to a moment of individual brilliance like that.
It does, and those moments are the ones you remember. They're the ones that make you love this game.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. Dominant wins, tough, draws, tactical battles, moments of magic. This weekend really did have a bit of everything. As we look ahead to the next round of matches, what are some of the storylines you'll be watching?
Well, the big question for me is, can Inter Milan keep this up? Can they maintain this intensity, this dominance? If they can, they're going to be very tough to beat.
I'm with you on that one. They looked like a team on a mission. What else?
I'm also curious to see how Juventus develops tactically. Can they find that balance between their attacking flair and this new defensive solidity?
It's a great point. It's going to be fascinating to see if they can keep evolving and adapting. Anything else?
I think we need to keep an eye on some of those teams who are flying under the radar a bit. Venezia, for example, they were incredible against Napoli. If they can keep playing with that kind of resilience, they could be a real surprise package this season.
You're right. Sometimes it's those teams you least expect who end up making the biggest impact.
Well, I think we need to keep an eye on the race for the Capocannoniere.
Yeah.
The top scorer. We've got the usual suspects, but there are always a few surprises.
Oh, yeah. Totally. That's one of the things I love about Serie A.
Yeah.
You just never know who's going to step up and have a breakout season. It keeps things interesting.
Absolutely. And, speaking of interesting, we have to talk about the fans. The atmosphere at some of these matches was incredible. It just adds so much to the experience.
Oh, for sure. The passion of the Serie A fans, what makes it so special. You can feel the energy, the intensity, the love for the game. It's contagious.
It really is. And it reminds you that these matches, they're about more than just the result. They're about community, about tradition, about sharing those experiences with people who love the game just as much as you do.
So well said.
Okay.
As we wrap up our deep dive into this weekend's Serie A action,
Yeah.
I'm just feeling so excited for what's to come. This season, it already feels like it's going to be full of surprises and drama and those incredible moments that make you jump out of your seat.
I agree. We've seen some amazing individual performances, some really innovative tactics from the managers, and the level of competition is just so high. It's going to be a wild ride.
It is, and we'll be here every step of the way breaking it all down for you. So until next time, keep watching, keep analyzing, and most importantly, keep enjoying this beautiful game.
Ciao.